Hi, and thank you for joining our virtual running clinic with Dr. Mary Caldwell and physical therapist Chris Theon, who will discuss and demonstrate essential exercises for running, as well as tips to remain injury-free and stay safe during this pandemic. In addition, we also have Jeff Wells, owner of Fleet Feet, with us today as well. And I'm excited to share that we are live at VCU Health's Short Pump Pavilion, which was previously known as the Neuroscience, Orthopedic, and Wellness Center. My name is Sharnese Smith, and I am a member of VCU Health's marketing team. So before we begin our presentation, I'd like to first make note that we'll hold all questions until the very end, but please feel free to drop those questions into the comments and we'll address them during the Q&A. So joining us today, we have Dr. Mary Caldwell, a sports medicine, physical medicine, and rehabilitation physician at VCU Health. She earned her medical degree at the Philadelphia College of the Osteopathic Medicine and completed her internal medicine internship at the University of Maryland and her residency in physical medicine and rehabilitation at the Northwestern University, followed by her fellowship at Georgetown University. Dr. Caldwell has worked with multiple professional teams, including the Joffrey Ballet, the Washington Wizards, DC United, and the Washington Spirit. In addition, she also covered multiple marathons, including the Chicago Marathon and Richmond Marathon. She's also a team physician for the extended national teams for USA Soccer, futsal, and beach soccer, and current marathon director for Richmond. She's now the team physician for Longwood University in Sportable, which is adaptive sports. She is a prior NCAA Division I track and field middle distance runner and still is an avid runner herself. Thanks for joining us, Dr. Caldwell. Next, we have Chris Theon. He's an orthopedic physical therapist who specializes in helping runners achieve their peak physical goals. Chris obtained his Doctor of Physical Therapy from the University of Southern California, and after graduating, he practiced PT in Hawaii, Seattle, Boston, and Richmond. He has been practicing in Richmond area since 2007, joining VCU Health in 2016. Chris performs 3D run analysis at the VCU Health Short Pump Pavilion. And Chris is also a runner and a triathlete. He has ran marathons and participated in triathlons of all distances, including an Ironman. Thanks, Chris, for joining us. And in addition, I'm happy to welcome Jeff Wells, owner and operator of Fleet Feet Richmond. He is a 45-year plus runner with over 45 marathons, owner and operator of Fleet Feet specialty running stores for 20 years, and a proud sponsor of the Richmond Marathon with 2 locations in Richmond. So thank you, Dr. Caldwell, Chris, and Jeff for joining us today. And I'll now turn the show over to you, Dr. Caldwell.
Great. Thanks, Sharnese. Thanks so much for having us today. We're all so excited to be here. We each offer a little bit of a different perspective towards running medicine, but when you bring us together, I think we lead to a lot of great success for a lot of runners. So as Sharnese kindly stated, I'm really fortunate to get to practice what I preach. I'm a current runner, prior college track and field Division I athlete, and really passionate about exercise. The benefits of exercise are numerous. For those of you that personally come to see us for your care, we take your care very seriously. We know that you love running, and we love running just as much. We know that it's great for both the mental health outlet, the friendship, the bond that you make, but also the wonderful physical health benefits that you get no matter your age as a runner. Today, my main goals, and to keep it brief, are going to talk about the growth of running, the common injuries that we see, and preventing injuries, most importantly, in runners, especially for all of those on the line looking for those tips, and we want to prevent anything from happening. So first, to talk about the growth of running. It's one of the biggest sports in the world. There are over 30 to 40 million runners worldwide, with growing participation starting in as races as low as 5Ks or those 3.1 miles up to marathons. And of course, we have our ultra marathon runners, which is a race longer than that 26-mile run. The average age of runners is actually anywhere from 35 to 40 years of age, which is awesome, because that means that we only get better with time. If for those runners out there that understand, it's not easy keeping up your fitness and your endurance, but we're keeping and trucking along with the best of them. So the average age of runners, again, 35 to 40, and in marathon and ultra marathon runners, it's actually climbing higher than that at 40 to 45 years of age. Women don't participate in the racing as much, but even those numbers are climbing. So we're going to keep it up, and we're going to stay competitive. Switching gears over to running injuries. So that was a little bit of runner epidemiology. So runner injuries, anywhere, it's a big range, y'all. Anywhere from 19% to 80% of runners will report a running related injury sometime throughout their career. So you could be in that quarter of the people that don't get any injuries, or you could be, you know, up there with the rest of us that will get some type of runner related injury. So it's a reminder to all of us that injuries are common and you're bound to get one, but we're going to help you through it, and hopefully it won't cause anything long term. So the definition of an injury is a common question that I get that I want to address. Injury in sports medicine can be defined as many things. One of the main ways we define it is actually it's considered an injury if you have to miss time from your training or if you miss time from competition. So we do that throughout a number called 1,000 hours of running is how we do it. So the time you miss based during those 1,000 hours. So in a new runner, the injury rate can be as high as missing 33 hours out of those 1,000 hours, which is actually a large percentage of time during your training, especially if you're a new runner or someone that just started running within the last 3 months. It's much lower in your experienced runners. It's only about 7 hours missed per those 1,000 hours of time. So experienced runners, again, less likely to have an injury, more common in that new group of runners, which many of you may be. More importantly, 80% of any runner that has an injury will actually try and run through it. So you can all raise your hand if you're guilty of that or trying to do that. We're all there at some point, but that's a big percentage of people trying to push through, and that actually leads to more time away from your sport and what you love to do. In runners, factors that are commonly associated with injury, so this is where my job comes into play, often comes down to either having a history of a prior injury at some point, can be a risk factor for a recurrent injury, or poor training habits. Now, those training habits can come down to many things. It can come down to the way that you run, the way that your gait is, the way that your form is when you're running. There's some great evidence and literature that just came out about cadence, meaning the number of steps you're taking per stride, like as you're running, the pace that you're going. Actually, if you're running too slow, if you're taking too many steps per minute, really increases your risk of injury. And that's a really common thing that we see. It could be your shoes. It could be that the shoes are not made correctly, and Jeff will expand on this, made correctly for your feet, and that we need to address that component of it. It could be that you're not cross-training and that your strength is not appropriate for the amount of running that you're doing. Your hips could be very weak, your butt muscles, your feet could be weak. There's so many things, and Chris is going to really expand on that. Diet can be poor, and there's many things that diet can be. You could just not be eating the right things. You could be eating poorly. You could be eating wonderfully, but not taking in enough of the certain food groups that you need for the amount of energy that you're burning with running. Stress management, sleep, those are all really important things that we see lead to increased injury if we're not looking at our mental health and our well-being. That's critical. So remember, also, running more miles and running them faster doesn't make you better. It's another thing we see. Going out there and trying to do too much in the beginning, that's not smart. We have to build up to that. In other words, everyone has limitations. You have to respect your body. It doesn't mean there are not ways to overcome these limitations, but what I don't want you guys to do is ignore the pain, and I want you to seek treatment to address it sooner than later. And we're perfectly equipped to do that here at VCU Health. Common injuries, so switching gears, common injuries that we see related to those risk factors that I just referred to, most of the time I see simple knee injuries or lower leg injuries. Sometimes that knee injury can simply be the way that your kneecap isn't moving right when you're running, simply comes down to a strength deficit that's pretty easy to address and work on and get you feeling better. With the lower leg, we commonly see shin splints, and sometimes you can get actual overuse injuries where the bone gets these little micro fractures or stress injuries to the bone called a stress fracture. And that's one of the more common things I see. Most of the time when we address all of the risk factors, because we address them all, because it's often a component of everything building up to that injury. Diet is really important, and I just want to take another minute to talk about that. There's something called total energy expenditure. And this is the amount of, and this varies from person to person, depends on your body size, your genetics, meaning are you male, are you female, your body composition, the amount of activity you're doing. But what it comes down to is how much you're burning when you're exercising, how many of those calories you're putting out compared to how much you're taking in. And that can be different based off the various types of food groups. You might be taking in plenty of protein, but you're not taking in enough fat. It can come down to micronutrients as well. So what are your electrolytes doing? Are you getting little symbols and little signs like I'm getting muscle cramps related to my magnesium or my potassium? But that's the first sign that there might be a nutrient problem. In other words, diet is really important. And if that's something you wanted to discuss, we're happy to discuss that with you. There are easy ways that you can track it. We have wonderful sports dietitians we can work with as well. But it's actually a pretty easy thing to calculate and a pretty easy way to prevent burnout and make sure you're on the right page with that. The last thing I want to emphasize is that whether you consider yourself a novice runner or experienced runner, exercise is important for every single person. It's important, again, for that mental health. It's important for your physical health. Exercising at least 30 minutes 3 times a week is what is recommended from the American Cardiology and American Academy of Sports Medicine. And that really needs to be at a pace where you are having difficulty carrying on a conversation to make it good exercise. So if you're running out there just to stay in shape and to have that cardiac benefits, and you want to talk about where you should be with your exercise so that you're getting those benefits, we're happy to do that as well. And it's really important. We recommend for all runners that you consider a yearly check-in, and especially if you're over the age of 50 and you're running, just to prevent cardiac complications and unexpected outcomes. You know, it's really scary, but over a certain age, your heart, your kidney function starts to decline. Whether you're the most fit person there is, it's something you can't counter. It's part of aging. But what we want to do is prevent any catastrophic things from happening, especially if you're going to be very active. And there are screening tests that we can do as we help you to continue to exercise safely. So just to summarize, given the most common injuries are overuse injuries and muscle injuries, and can also deal with strength deficits, I want to pass the baton over to Dr. Thone, and he's going to take it from here and lead you guys through some awesome prevention exercises that you can really learn a lot from. So thank you again for listening.
All right, well, so I just wanted to say, first of all, congratulations. You know, you're training for a half marathon or a full marathon, and that's a pretty significant task, right? So, you know, less than 1% of the US population complete a marathon in their lifetime. So it's pretty impressive. So the next thing I wanted to kind of touch on is, you know, I love running, and I want to keep people out there running. That's my goal. I think that's what kind of we're trying to accomplish with having this Facebook Live piece right here, is that we want to keep you on the road safely. And that might require coming to see a health professional if you're feeling some stuff, but hopefully some of these exercises will keep you out there and not inside this building right here. So, you know, training for a marathon or a half marathon requires a lot of hard work, consistency, dedication, to build to the point where you can complete one of these races. You know, as I've told my patients, you know, the key to a successful, you know, training season beyond running miles is proper fueling, hydration, making sure that you're getting the appropriate rest, and being consistent with strength training for injury prevention. If we cut the corners on strength training, stretching, sleeping, we pay the price over time. One of my favorite quotes is that motivates me to put in that extra work during the training season is from Jerry Rice, the Hall of Fame wide receiver. He said, "Today I will do what others won't so that tomorrow I can do what others can't." And I think that really says a lot, right? You got to put in the work if you are training for some of these endurance races, because if you don't, that's where you're going to kind of not make it to the finish line. So I think, you know, if you're consistent with your work, you'll make it to that finish line. And that's what our goal is here. So let's do some exercises at this point. All right. First things first, I wanted to kind of show you, I think we'll start from kind of the lower portion and move up at this point. So what I wanted to show you here first is a little bit of what we call the foot core. So doing some toe yoga. So you're working on strength of the foot here. So what you're going to try to do is you're going to try to lift that big toe up and then those outside four and go back and forth and back and forth. If you can do it on single leg, if we can get onto my single leg here, then you're going to work that piece right there. All right, back and forth. It is tougher than it looks in the end. So, all right, next thing we're going to do is the short foot. Short foot is kind of working on that plantar fascia a little bit there. So what I don't want you to do is I don't want you curling those toes under, because that's kind of working on muscles that are outside the foot. We're working on the intrinsic muscles of the foot, all the muscles that will support your foot when you're landing during running. So what you're going to do is you're going to do a short foot. So you're just going to kind of create that arch by squeezing your toes down and just kind of lifting your arch up each time. Same again, work on single leg stance and work on trying to do that without losing your balance. It's tough, but it's good things to work on. Next one we're going to do here, and this is another good one for you people that have suffered from some plantar fasciitis, is this thing we have right here. This is called the fasciitis fighter. Now, you don't need to have this. You can use a yoga mat. You can roll it up here. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to put your base of your foot on kind of the pad here and your big toe up on the lump here. And what we're going to do here is do some calf raises. So up, you want to do it up for about 3 seconds up, 3 seconds down. So nice and controlled up, nice and controlled down. What you're trying to do is you're trying to treat your plantar fascia like it's a tendon. And if we can load that tendon, it will basically be able to resist some of the kind of the collapsing down that happens when you run, when you walk, all that kind of stuff. So another really easy thing to do at home. All these exercises you can do at home. You don't have to have gym equipment, which is great. You might need some steps, maybe a few weights, but you can find those online at this point. So, all right, so next thing. All right, we are going to work on the soleus, right? So one of the big drivers for running is having that soleus work. So we're going to come down into a 90-90 squat here, and we're going to lift up on the toes. We've all done calf raises where we're off the step and we're just doing them standing up, and that's great for the gastroc, but we also need to work on the soleus because it's going to be one of the active muscles during your running. Obviously, doing calf raises off of a step is great as well, okay? So moving up from the foot and ankle, let's go to doing some tap downs. All right. So we have to be able to control our landing. Every time you land, you're basically keeping yourself from collapsing to the ground. So eccentrically working your quad, you're going to tap down and back up, tap down and back up, trying to keep your pelvis level. All right. Nice and easy. That's a great exercise to do. Do it on both sides. It's good for some of that patellofemoral syndrome. If you have pain with this one, because it is tough, start low. You don't even have to touch the ground. Just go in a shorter kind of range at this point. We want to work up to doing 6 to 8 inches, which is tough, but you can make it there eventually. We just have to work on it first and foremost. All right. Next one we are going to do, let's see here. Let's put that right there. Okay. So this is a star excursion, basically a Y balance test, which is great as well for controlling all that landing. You know, running is not just a sagittal plane activity where it's just forward and back. If you run trails, there's some variation in the terrain. We're turning, we're running on curved streets. So we got to work in different planes as well. So we are going to tap down in the front, tap down laterally, and tap down behind. So here, here, and here. And you can even kind of come up, boom, up, boom, up, and around. All right, working on that single leg stance. Running is all about single leg stance. So we have to kind of stop, doing everything bilateral and kind of work on that single leg. So, all right, next one. All right, another single leg activity here. We are going to do an RDL here. So a little bend in the knee here. The wand is meant to keep us from rounding down at our back. So we're going to come here, over, where you can control it, and back again. Down where you can control it, and back. Once we get to the point where we can control our back and not round down or anything like that, that's when you can use a kettlebell or a weight or something like that. Tap down, back, tap down, back, and back. All right? So good way to progress that exercise a little bit. Next one, it will be a split squat. So, 3 things we want to work on as runners. If we only had time for 3 exercises, some sort of squat, some sort of deadlift, and an anterior tap down. Those 3 exercises alone will typically work enough muscles to keep you healthy. So we've done the anterior tap down. I'm going to show you a single leg squat first. So come right here and work on just kind of coming down. You get into that running position a little bit, that split position, which is good. And doing that squat there. A lot of these exercises can be tough on your knees, right? So what I want you to make sure of is if you feel some pain, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to stop. What you just have to do is modify. Maybe you don't go down as far. Make sure that your foot's out far enough that you got a vertical tibia. You just have to change things around a little bit. See if you can make it work so that you don't have pain. It's not no pain, no gain when it comes to joints. I don't care about muscle pain, but we don't want joint pain. All right. So we talked about squats. So the best thing to do if you have access would be a back squat, right? A back squat, basically, you got the bar and you're going to go down and squat with the bar. We don't have that access to that right now. If you're not going to the gym, you might not be able to do that one. So get a kettlebell, get a bucket from Home Depot, and do a goblet squat. You can hold it here, you can hold it here. All right, and we're going to come on down there and squat. All right, perfect. Nice and easy. All right. But you do need to squat. We need strength in the legs. If we don't have the strength is probably a little more important than stretching. There's not a lot of research on stretching that shows that prevents injuries. There is good research that shows that strengthening prevents injuries. So we want you to strengthen your body a little bit there. So we have that one. Next one here would be a deadlift. So deadlift, same thing. If we had a bar, it would be great. Get the bar here, working on getting the back up and pushing through the glutes a little bit there. If we don't have that, then we're just going to use the kettlebell or whatever we have, the bucket, whatnot. Coming through, getting that little squeeze in the glutes as we come up. Squeezing the glutes as we come up. All right. Next one. Bridging on the stool. Some of these exercises I demoed last year. It's good to see some of them. Like, we're not reinventing the wheel here. Some exercises are just good for activating certain muscles. So this one is going to kick in the core, but it will also kick in your hamstrings. So I'm going to come down here, and what we're going to do is we're going to bridge up, and we're going to lift one. We're going to lift one, back and forth. All right. Good. All right, let me make sure I got this. All right. So, all right. Good. This is like a 12-inch stool. So if you don't have a stool, you do it off your second step. Your feet will reach to the second step, nice and easy. Do it at home. Put a yoga mat down in front of your steps. I do it on my front steps at home outside. So, all right. Step ups. So, if we can get a higher surface, it's great. So sometimes it's like a retaining wall. Sometimes you just got to go to the playground and there'll be something you can step up on that's a little bit higher. But what we're going to try to do, step up. If you have some weights, it's great because we can get into that running motion, but also work on that core a little bit. So forward step up here. We're going to come up and up there, back down and up and back down. So just pause for a second there, work on that nice long length right there. It's almost like doing a bird dog, but standing. All right. Let's see here. So, oh, you know what? I need this because, forward is important, right? Almost more important for a lot of us, lateral, because it kicks in your glutes a little bit more. So we step up laterally, boom, and you can feel that hip work each time, right? And you can make it kind of fast. You can even do a little jump at the top there. So ways to progress it. It doesn't have to be this high. Just make it so it's a challenge for you. All right, so now let's see here. We talked about getting in that runner position with step ups. We can simply do a march as well. Boom, right there. Boom, right there. Now you're working trunk and core as you work that as well. Do that for 50 feet, walking back and forth. You get that, runners often think they don't have to do anything with their upper body. Well, it's not accurate. If you don't work your upper body, you're going to be kind of slumping down or running kind of back here. If you don't have the upper body strength, you will fail as we get to mile 20. So work some upper body. It's good for runners. So, all right, let's do side planks. Everybody loves a side plank, right? One of my favorite ones to give to runners is the side plank with hip abduction, because it just makes a lot of things work. You got the stabilization leg working, you got the upper leg working, and then you're working your core at the same time. So coming down, reaching up, come up right there. If you can either hold it, you can do reps. If that's too hard, go from your knees. Come up here and do reps from this position here. All right? Make it work for you. It doesn't have to be overly complicated. If we are doing some side planks, we probably should do some regular planks as well. So we're going to come down here, and what we're going to do is do some planks with hip extension. Now, what I don't want is here, and you got your back involved, right? Drawing your core up to here, nice and easy. All right. And maybe you don't do them quite as fast as this because I'm starting to sweat pretty good right now at this point. So, all right. Another one I like for working hips. And, I like exercises that give you more bang for your buck, right? Not just one thing, not just working a bicep curl, but, you do curls, stand on a single leg while you're doing it. So you're working a little bit more of that neuromuscular system. So I like this as a lateral tap down with hip abduction. So you come down, you come out, slightly to the back, you come back and up. Down, out, back, up. All right, great to work on. You're in that running position here. You get that glute firing over on this side. Easy exercise to do off your steps at home as well. Perfect. Okay. So, Jeff, you mind if I borrow you for 1 second? I'm going to just show one thing. You're going to be my post. So typically we're going to have this in a door frame. You're going to hold on to that, maybe hold right through that right there. So I like the Palloff press. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me go this direction here. We're going to step out here, get some good tension, get in that good ready position here. This is going to work your core. It's going to work your hips as well. You're going to push out, hold for a count of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and back. Turn around. You do the other side as well. One last exercise, because I think my time is about up here. And what we're going to do here with this band as well, and easy to find these bands online at Dick's, wherever, is single leg stance here. And what you're just going to do, diagonal, diagonal, back and forth, working that trunk, working your core. Thank you very much, Jeff. I appreciate it. So, you know, you don't have to do all those exercises. And you don't have to, even if you like a lot of those, do some of them one day, do some of them another day, do some of them another day. Look at it in the off season, as we're getting ready for our real heavy duty training season, 3 days of work of strength training. It's what we need, 20, 30 minutes. Okay. I know it sounds like a long time sometimes. You just do something. It's better than nothing, right? When you get into your training season, it might drop down to 2, maybe even 1 as we get up in the mileage and we just don't have time, right? But don't forgo your strengthening. If you do, something will break down on your body. All right. Thank you very much for listening and watching. And we are going to now shift it over to Jeff, and he's going to talk about shoes, which everybody asks PTs about all the time.
Thank you, Chris. Hey, my name's Jeff. I'm owner and operator of Fleet Feet. We have 2 locations in town, and our staff is ready to serve you when you're ready to come in and talk about the gear that you're going to need to have a successful race. It's very important to have the right gear, and our staff's very knowledgeable and passionate about sharing what they know so they can serve you best. So when you come to our store, we're going to start off with a consultation with you to find out what your wants and needs are, what your past experience are, if you're having any issues that we can address as far as gear's concerned. We do a thorough interview with you, and then we follow that up with the measurement of your feet. So size matters when you're sizing yourself for footwear, and it's very important to have the right size, both in length and shape. We have a patented 3D scanner. We just passed 3 million scans now that we've done, and it's all cloud-based information, and it literally allows you to see your feet the way we see your feet. And that's very helpful for us to work together to find the best gear for you. So it really all starts with the footwear. That's what separates you from the ground. And as you heard earlier, there's a lot of injuries that it can incur during running, and it doesn't have to be. So as far as the right footwear, the measurements are such that you're going to have just a little bit of space in the shoe for your feet, both in length and a nice snug fit in the midfoot, adequate room in the toe box, and the length, as I said, you're going to have a little bit of room, roughly 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch spacing between the longest toes and the end of the shoe. The sizing is such that most people are surprised that we go up in size, and they're so used to wearing a certain size. And it's pretty common to go up a 1/2 to a full size in your footwear. This is probably the most important thing of staying injury-free with your footwear. A shoe will last about 400 to 500 miles, depending on the type of shoe it is. And the best shoe for you is to be the one that feels most comfortable to you. You'll have some of you will have experience of running in certain shoes that you've had success with. Others will be quite open and interested in trying new things. I will say, being knowledgeable of the business, there's a lot of good quality shoes that are available to you. And the best shoe for you is going to be the one that's most comfortable to you, that fits you properly, that gives you the maximum comfort when you're running. The shoes range roughly $130 to $160, and they are very value packed. And the one that's going to work best for you might be different from your friends. So listen to your friends if they advise on shoes, but make sure you check out for yourself. Often the shoes need a little bit more than just the shoe itself. The sock liners that come with the shoe are very thin and don't add much support. And often we talk to our customers about the added benefits of wearing a over-the-counter insole that replaces the sock liner in the shoe. And these insoles range from about $40 to $60, and they last 2 pairs of shoes. And what they're doing is, again, they're replacing the sock liner from the shoe that doesn't have much support, and these mold and shape to the bottom of your foot and helps marry your foot to the shoe, so the foot and the shoe act as one. It also removes any voids that are in the shoe, and often removing those voids and giving that nice marriage between the foot and the shoe allows the shoe to feel more comfortable. It also gives very good arch support, and it helps to give better alignment and also better shock absorption. Also, you should consider a good sock, a good running sock, and these are different from socks that you might find at the Five and Dime store. These socks are meant to work out in. They hug your foot like your grandmother might, and they stay in place. They don't move around. They wick moisture really well to keep the sock and the foot very dry. They're thick and padded where they need to be, but more thin where they don't need to be. Yes, and I've brought a couple of my favorite ones. One is the feature sock and a Belega sock. And another one of my favorites is the CEP compression sock. This is medical grade compression. It makes a great long distance running sock because it cuts down on the swelling of the foot so that your foot remains more of the size that it's intended to be, and also promotes blood flow to get that blood pumped up from the lower extremities back up to the heart to get reoxygenate to serve you better. And then to top it all off, you should always consider to have a good anti-chafing product nearby that you use, and go ahead and practice now to use it. Don't wait to race day. Often you find race day all of a sudden is rainy and you haven't practiced in the rain too much. And this is a great product to put pre-apply. It's a great preventive injury measure, and that it can be applied to the foot and any other places on your body that you anticipate chafing. And it's waterproof and it stays on during the duration of your exercise. So that's all I have for you now. I welcome y'all to come visit us at Fleet Feet to see what all the gear that we have in store for you, and allow our staff to spend time with you, quality time, do that Fit ID 3D scan, and let us talk shoes and socks and insoles with you.
Thank you all for those great presentations. We'll now open the floor for any questions. But first, we'll read the questions that we've had submitted in advance, and then we'll shift over to the questions that are submitted in the comment section. All right, so the first question we have is, I've started to notice pain building up, and I'm not sure whether to train through it or rest. What are your thoughts?
It totally depends on the location of the pain. Mm-hmm. Depends on, is the pain getting worse as you continue to run? Is the pain going away as you continue to run? In general, if things are getting worse as you continue to run, that needs to be evaluated. Any other thoughts on?
Yeah, I mean, and I always like the nature of the pain, is it sharp? Sharp pain is usually not a good sign, right? Is it some achiness, does it last to the next day? Do you feel anything the next morning when you wake up? Those are considerations. You're going to feel some things over the course of training. I mean, like you're beating your body up, but I think you just got to pay attention to it a little bit, and be appropriate. Go to see somebody on the earlier end than waiting too long, and then all of a sudden we have to shut things down, and then you're really in trouble at that point. So,
right. All right, and the next question we have is, what do I do if I get a cramp?
Cramps. I mean, cramps got to be your nutrition and your hydration, right? There's some reason, something that's causing those muscles to cramp. So I think you got to look at how are you fueling ahead of time. How are you feeling after, or fueling after? Because that's the important pieces for making sure that you don't cramp. Or, are you taking your sports drinks as you run, right?
Mhm.
All that stuff makes a big difference.
I would agree. And Fleet Feet has a lot of those supplements too that we recommend and that we use and that a lot of runners use, but making sure you're getting the right nutrients is a big one. Yeah.
Thank you. And the next one, what are the best types of shoes for running a marathon?
Wow. Yeah, so that's going to depend on you personally, very much so, and what your goals are. So some are, some folks are just going to really need that extra cushion to get them across that 26 miles, and others are looking to get to Boston qualifying time. So there's a lot of variations of the shoes, and you're going to be able to choose, what to meet your goals. But also, it's going to be important to like what works for you. And that can be such a unique thing, right, guys? Like it's just some shoes work well for some people and not for others. And I think it's just like find out what works for you and stick with that.
And I always like, a shoe should feel good when you first put it on. There shouldn't be any running shoes. There's no breaking in. They should feel good right from the get-go.
Okay. Thank you. You actually answered a question that just came into the comments. So the next question we have is it important to strength train during marathon training?
Yeah, for sure. I think we've been talking about that. You got to do your strength training.
Right.
You got to carve out some time. It doesn't take that long. We all have extra time. We just need to, maybe tweak our life a little bit. If you don't do it, you're going to end up hurt.
Yeah, non-negotiable. You've got to cross train. You've got to strength train. And when I say cross train, I think we'll get to that in a little bit, but that doesn't just mean strength training. Strength training is its own classification of exercise that is really important for the body and recommended in addition to some type of cardio. When I add cross training, I mean, you should be doing a diversity of sports. So you should either be biking with it or swimming with it, but no one should just be doing one motion with their body, like running all the time.
Thank you. The next question, what are your thoughts on carb loading?
I think we're all guilty of it, but hopefully that's gone away. I think there's been enough information and education over the last decade that's a kind of a well-known, not a good thing to do anymore. Your body should not be carb depleted by the time you're ready for your big race. This is really you're feeding your body along the way. You've been preparing for the big day. Your carb loading is not a thing. Now, carb regeneration as you're running with supplements along the way, with what certain sugars you need, that's important. So that's a little bit different. Yeah. Anything else you guys want to add on that?
I think it's you got to get your kind of eating plan down far in advance so that you don't have to try to catch up at the end, or you're not training for a marathon. You're not going to lose weight necessarily because you are going to need calories to replenish and keep your body healthy. So
Good. Thank you. And the next question, I've heard that there's a BCU Run Lab is an option to help return you back to running after an injury. Can you walk through what the lab consists of?
So that's the main reason I came to VCU, the Run Lab, just because it was really an interesting concept to me. And it gave us another tool to really look in depth at what the running mechanics are of each individual. Right. And we use a 3D camera system that basically reproduces your pelvis down to your foot. And and the camera can see what our eye cannot see. Even if we use an iPad and we slow it down, there are subtleties that we just cannot see. So what we do is we usually will have you come in, we'll interview you, see what's been going on. We will either do the run assessment on the first visit, or if we feel like there's something too much going on at the beginning, we'll do that on the second visit or third, whenever it's appropriate. But it usually involves kind of setting up a lot of sensors on your body, We always, if you're coming in to do the run assessment, it's just straight off. We always want you to wear your running attire, relatively shorter shorts, tighter fitting clothes, because we're going to put some reflective markers on your body. And we just need to make sure that those do not move or get blocked, because that will skew our data, and then we won't have the appropriate information that we need. And then we generate a report from that. I usually, and my partner, David Hodnett, we record you as well with our iPad, so that when we read the report, we can slow it down, show you what you're doing, because sometimes if you just read something, it doesn't make sense. So if we can slow that down, show you on the camera, oh yeah, look at that, my pelvis is dropping every time I land on my leg. That is like a light bulb moment for a lot of people, to be able to go, all right, this is what I have to work on at that point.
Right.
So.
Well, thank you. And I also just want to make note, if you'd like to make an appointment, you can call VCU Health Sports Medicine Physical Therapy, and that number is 804-828-1122. And the next question that we have, as the miles build in our training plan, I'm feeling tension in my lower back and that I need to pop my back to relieve the tension. Is this normal?
Interesting question. That could be for many reasons. You could be, Chris kind of touched on this before, stretching doesn't have great evidence. So you could certainly just be tight, where it's a muscular pattern. Maybe your back is overcompensating for core weakness, would be more my thought process with that. If the tension is building as you continue to run, despite popping it mechanically, that really should be looked at. Or if it's moving down your legs, that needs to be assessed. There's certainly no evidence that says that mechanically popping or cracking, as I call it, cracking your back will do any damage. But usually my thought to that question would be it's a weak core, and you need to strengthen your core because your back is taking on too much.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it would sound like to me as well. If you have tension in your back, there's somewhere in your form, something is not quite right. It's likely due to kind of some strength imbalance or lack of strength, right? So I think addressing that on the early end is better. Simple like yoga, it feels good. If you feel like stretching helps your low back, then stretch. That's great. That's not a bad thing. But yeah, we just don't want any of those bad red flags, like Dr. Caldwell was saying, where you have nervy type stuff going down into your glute or into your leg, because those will progress and could become worse over time.
Okay, thank you. And the next question, what training cadence do you recommend?
You got this one.
So the training cadence, like everybody wants an exact number, and there is not a true number. 180 is thrown around. That's steps per minute. So landing 90 times on your right foot, landing 90 times on your left foot, easy to calculate. Get on a treadmill, set the pace at whatever, and then just count one leg for 30 seconds, double that number, and then double it one more time, and that gives you your cadence. Or your watch. Look at all of us have the watches that will give us our cadence. So the exact number doesn't matter. Usually, if it's on the lower end, like below 170, in the 60s, in the 50s, and you're having pain, we're going to say, let's try to increase that. And typically, the best way to increase your cadence is to increase it by about 5 to 10%. That's what the literature says is safe to do without causing other injuries. What it does is it gets your foot off the ground a little bit faster. You only can get hurt when your foot's in contact with the ground. So if we can get that foot up and around a little bit faster, that's going to be better. It's going to shorten your stride some, so you won't be landing way out in front of your center of mass. It's going to decrease the demand on the hip, the knee, the foot. So there's not a perfect number, but when it's slow, we probably could increase it a little bit there. And so if some people even are just kind of like, I don't feel any pain, but I'm in the 150s, 60s, just try increasing it by about 5% and see what that does for you. Maybe you'll like it. It usually makes you more efficient. Increasing your cadence to a certain point makes you more efficient. If you're in the 200s already, Don't mess around with your cadence. Don't try to increase your cadence. That you are already turning over way too. You're turning over fast. So we don't want to increase it over that point.
Agree. There's been good evidence recently coming out about cadence, and it is somewhere around that number. I agree completely. 150, 160 is probably too slow. You want to be above that to prevent those overuse injuries, and that's important. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. The next question, I feel sleepy more often than I have since starting to run. Any help on feeling more energy?
That can come down to a lot of things. If you really are feeling more fatigue, that's not what running's meant to do. You really should feel good when you run, and you should feel good the next day, and that energy should be positive. So if you're feeling tired, making sure you're doing the strength training that you need to do, making sure you're getting the sleep that you need to do, making sure that your running routine is timed with, how you've eaten and what you've been eating is really important. Sometimes it can really be something with your body. Do you need your iron checked? Do you need your thyroid checked? I would not ignore fatigue with exercise. That needs to be looked at by a medical professional for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. That sounds spot on.
And then we have one more question that came in. Is it normal for your foot to feel sore in a new shoe? I have had 6 runs in the new shoe from 3 to 6 miles, and they do not feel broken in. Is this the wrong shoe?
I'll address that. So yeah, no, that's not normal. Chris mentioned earlier that shoes should feel good right when you put it on, and it's already broken in. So there's something there that you give it an ample times to run in it, and a good thing to do right there is if you have your old shoe, you can switch back to it and just try that on and see if that gives you immediate relief. That's even further proof that new shoe there's just something wrong with it, especially if it's something new that you're trying, and it's different from something you've used in the past.
Thank you. So I don't see any new questions, but I just wanted to give you all an opportunity if you wanted to add anything before we end.
I'm good.
I just say get out there and keep running. I think we all have that love of running, and that's why we like to treat runners. That's why we're here. That's why Jeff has a running store. I mean, we like to do it. We want you to keep you out there and keep on the road.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
Well, Dr. Caldwell, Chris, and Jeff, it was such a pleasure having you join us for this webinar, and I'm glad that we were able to learn several important steps to properly prepare for a marathon and avoid injuries. So to learn more about VCU Health's sports medicine, as well as physical medicine and rehabilitation, visit vcuhealth.org or follow VCU Health on Facebook. And in addition, follow Fleet Feet at Fleet Feet Richmond on Facebook to discover the perfect shoe to fit and achieve your fitness goals. So once again, thank you all for joining us, and everyone have a great night.
Thank you.